so excited. It's like I get a chance to talk all the time now, and this stuff never gets old for me. And so I wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about some of the things that we've been working on up at Agape. I had this thing a couple of months ago where I started thinking that we needed to go back to basics, back to the principles. I'm always talking about the light and the love that we see in one another and in their eyes. And so it becomes this thing of, are we actually practicing the principles? And so today I kind of wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about some of the basics. And I know you guys know all of this stuff, but sometimes it's nice because I think they said, who was it? Was it that said forgetfulness is the one thing that we have to get beyond? I mean, our main thing is that we forget. And so it becomes this thing of, how do I maintain this? How do I go through this? So when I started thinking about this, I wanted to talk a little bit about the principles. We've talked about, for the last couple of months, we talked about the principle of prosperity, and then we go through and we're talking about different things and how we flow our energy into the world. And so for me, it's always about, my life is an outpicturing. What I'm doing is an outpicturing of what I'm thinking. And so if you know that your thoughts change things, then look at your world and see how you're doing on this, right? I mean, all of us can do this, and just see how life is going for us. So when I started thinking about this, I started thinking that, we are governed by laws. Not just in this land, but in our lives, right? We talk about laws, and we think somehow that we've created these things, but laws are just laws, right? It's like the law of gravity. What goes up must come down. You didn't create that. It's just because, at one point you started seeing that it works and that it's true. So whether it's the law of gravity or relativity or any of the other laws that are out there, we observe them, and they basically apply to no matter who puts them out there. It's repeatable, it's demonstrable, it's proven, right? And so when we talk about laws in the science of mind community or in the New Thought community, those laws are what we call principles. They are guiding principles, and they show us what it is and how we think and how we are. So if we say that there is a law of cause and effect that is in operation in our lives, that means that cause and effect, everything that you see that's going on in your world is an outpicturing of what you first thought into being. So I started thinking about it because I was like, okay, if that be the case, then, what's my responsibility? Now, I want to try a little experiment with you guys because I like to do stuff like this, right? If you close your eyes for just a second, right? Close your eyes and picture this room in pink. Just the whole room in pink. And now picture this room filled with people. Every seat is filled with people, and it's kind of like this nice, loving energy. You picture that, right? You can see that in your mind. You can feel it, right? Now, there's a whole lot of stuff that you can change. You can change around even who's speaking and all this stuff. You can do that in your mind, in your mind's eye. But now I want you to change who's thinking these thoughts. Change the perceiver. That's a little more difficult, isn't it? Open your eyes now. Here's the thing. Most of us don't recognize that there is something in back of all this that is the perceiver, that is thinking these things into being. You can change a whole lot of stuff in the outward world, but what you can't change is that you are. You are hardwired in, and I don't mean to say it like that, but you're hardwired in to this thing called God. And God operates by law and through principle. no respecter of person. It doesn't care what you're doing, whether you did something bad or not. God operates by principle. And so if it is always saying yes to what you're thinking, right? If it is saying yes to the images that you put out there, the thing is not to go around trying to change what's out there, but rather changing the self that's doing the thinking. It's funny because a lot of times we get caught up. I kind of use the analogy of dallying with the clouds. You ever hear, like, we've got these voices that go on inside of our head, and the voice is saying to you, pay attention. Are you listening to what she's saying? You know, you got this chatterbox going, I can't believe she just said that. You know, we got voices. And those are like the passing clouds. They're the things that get caught up in our minds. They're not the truth of you. There's a wonderful book called The Untethered Soul, I do believe, that talks about just those things. How we get caught up in the passing stuff that goes through our minds rather than recognizing that we are there, that you are this hardwired being, this one that is totally one with this thing called God. That is the thing that we have to, when we go into the silence, that's the thing that we have to tap into. So, and I'm getting to my point here, because, I mean, it's not like I'm trying to make a point. I got a building thing, you know, I'm going through this thing. So we're going through and we're thinking about what it is we're thinking. And as you pay attention to your thoughts, you can see that sometimes what you do is you follow the passing clouds. They call it monkey-mindedness. You know what I mean? And instead of recognizing that you are one with this thing called God, it's not separate, it's not apart, it's not out there judging you, it's not saying to you, that you weren't a very good girl or you were doing something wrong. It's none of that stuff. It's just saying simply yes to you. So then what is it that you're doing? What is it that you're feeding into it? There's this, I read this other analogy and where there was this cowboy. This was back when motion pictures were first made. And, you know, they had this tent set up and they wanted everybody to come out and see this, this movie. And so they put the tent up and they cast the movie from the projector onto the screen. And there's this cowboy on there. And at some point in the movie, they started roughing up the woman. And like a cowboy, the chivalrous cowboy, he gets up and he starts to shoot at the man on the screen. Now, the movie just went on, right? Movie just keeps on going. And even though he shot holes in the screen and everything, it had no effect because the movie was still playing. A lot of times we're sitting there and we're trying to shoot at the things that we see in front of us, rather than recognizing that the problem is not what we're looking at. The problem is the projector. You are the projector. You're projecting these things into your life. So, it's interesting because I'm always telling folks that, this stuff is saying yes, it works necessarily. And when we recognize that it works and when it works necessarily, then what we do is we step back and we figure out, I need to change self. Now, I will tell you guys that I got a great example for you guys. Now, you just saw what happened with this past election, right? Donald Trump, he won. Do you know what he got up on stage and every time he got in front of a group of people, you know what he said? We're going to win, and we're going to win big. Right? He said it over and over again. And what he was doing was he was speaking his word. We talk about that here, don't we? Yes. We talk about the power of the word. And there's this cosmic stuff. We think that we are in this solid form or this solid universe, but we're really not. This stuff, we are bringing form to things. It says that in the beginning was the Word. And the Word was God, the Word was with God, and the Word became flesh. So in the beginning was your thoughts. You take your thoughts, you make them into words, and those words become flesh in your world. It's not an accident where you are. It's not an accident the things that you are seeing occurring in your life. It's based on your thinking. It's based on what comes out of your mouth. And if you want to change your world, you change all of that. So if Donald Trump can get up and can speak something that seems highly unlikely into existence, surely you can.
Amen.
Right?
Amen.
So if you want to see that it works if you work it. If you want to see that, it becomes this thing, what are you speaking? I'm saying that every week I am influencing thousands of people because I'm talking. I'm out here and I'm doing my work. At every moment, we need to be speaking our truth. What is it that you want to be true for your life and the lives of those around you? Those things matter. So it's not about the stuff that's out there on the screen. It's all about what's playing over and over again in this head of yours. So I tell you, I have been going through and putting together and thinking about all of this stuff because I'm sitting there and I see it working. I know that it works. You guys know that it works. And so why do we do something different? Why are we caught up with all of the little junk that we're caught up with? If we know that all of this stuff is connected, right? If we know that our thoughts are powerful, and trust me, you cannot negate the power of your thoughts, right? In the Course in Miracles, it says that all thoughts are creative. They create absolutely, necessarily. They create. You cannot diminish the power of your own mind. You cannot make it impotent because it is its very nature. Now, we have this idea that somehow, God is over there, and or we're getting closer to God, or we're this or we're that. But we were told it was in God that we live, move, and have our being, right? We were told that your relationship, not just to each other, but to God, is one. That means that you have the power. There's no trying to grow into the power, because when God created all. Everything that ever will be is right now. We're moving through this space and time, and you guys are the right people at this right time to deal with all of this stuff. This is the time that you were born for. I mean, you are the people. So it's not this thing of like, how could this happen at a time like this? We could look at all of this stuff in the world, but you are the generation that was created to deal with just this. I mean, I'm excited about what's to come of this. I'm excited about, our children coming up in this time, what they see and what they're experiencing. I'm excited because we're here. We come in on the heels of what they struggled through in the 60s and the 70s. We are right here at an optimal point, a shift in time to deal with this stuff. You're the right people. I'm so happy about this. And I get to experience this with you, right? And I know that there is a vigilance that is required of each of us to step up to the plate, right? To step up to the plate and be the gatekeepers for what is to happen here in our worlds. So there is no separation between us and God. There is no separation in any of this stuff. So God's allness is God's allness. That includes all of us. It's not something that we're aspiring to or growing to. It is. And to the level and to the degree that you can recognize it, it is. Right? So let me say it like this. I have the perception of this room. I have the perception of this room, but we know that this room is in this building. We know it's in this city. We know it's in this state. We know it's in this country. We know all of this stuff compounding on infinitum, right? There is an infinity that is, a vastness that is, and you guys are a part of that. If we just look through our eyes and think that this is it, we would be missing out on so much. When you close your eyes, there is so much more to you. I remember as a little kid, I used to sit there and I used to think, all kind of stuff. It's like, sometimes I get embarrassed to tell people this stuff. But you know those little moving red dots you used to see on the sidewalk or on the ground when you were a little kid? I would look down at these things because they were smaller than ants, much smaller than ants. I would look down at them and I would think, I wonder what they think of me. Can they even see me? Like I'm a big giant by comparison. What's their world like? Now, if you take that little thing and you keep going out, there's something that's sitting there looking and saying, I wonder what her world is like, right? What's the perception? So when we start talking about this power of the mind, we have the power to connect with all. Now, I will tell you too, because all of this stuff is great, but if you don't know how to use it, the Bible tells us it's done unto you as you believe, right? But I will also tell you that, there's this thing that Jesus was talking about, and he says, if you've got something that you're holding against your brother, go and make peace with them and then come back, and then come back and do what it is. If you come to the altar and you've got something against somebody, lay it on the altar, go make peace, and then you come back to the altar. Because, while you're holding these bad thoughts or something like that, it won't do you any good. Why is that? Because we're only one. We're all connected. And so if at any time I'm holding something against any one of us, that means that I've stunted something in all of us, right? So I need to get right first. It is my responsibility to correct my thoughts about whoever and whatever it is that I'm seeing. I need to correct that. And if I'm experiencing anything other than love, if I'm experiencing anything other than, looking at somebody and just recognizing that they are me, then I'm blocking. In the Course in Miracles, it starts out and it says the aim of the Course is not to teach the meaning of love, for that is beyond what can be taught. It does aim, however, at removing the blocks to our awareness of love's presence, which is your natural inheritance. What's your blocks? What's your blocks? Your blocks is thinking, that there's, an other out here. Your blocks is thinking that it's about, Christian versus Jewish versus Muslim. Or your blocks are those ideas that there's something wrong with our President-elect Trump. Those are blocks. Because the moment you make him about something else, it's not, remember that little nursery rhyme that says, if I'm pointing a finger at you, I got 3 more pointing back at me? It's not about him, it's about you. And so it becomes this thing about us changing up how it is that we see. And when you don't know how to do that, when you don't know how to get to a place where you're accepting and loving, God, show me. That's the prayer. Show me. Let me see as you see. Because God is looking at y'all and they're thinking like, ooh, this is some really good stuff. He's looking at you and he's thinking like, ooh, growth is about to happen here. And sometimes it's those challenges, it's those places that we need to forgive and release. Those are our biggest teachers. Those are our areas of biggest growth. And we have to be, at a certain point, we have to sit there and say, you know what? How do I, forgive this? How do I get beyond this? And when you ask with a true heart, you will get the answer every time. But if you're out there dallying with the clouds, you're never going to answer that. Because you'll be sitting there thinking about all this other stuff. You'll be occupied with all of this stuff that floats. And the reason why I use clouds, for example, is because, for me, I look up and I see, I see clouds sometimes. I see rain sometimes. I see storms sometimes. And those things come in and out of our atmosphere, right? Those things pass by. But you know that if you go beyond the atmosphere, it's not impacted by all this mess, right? So at a certain point, we have to move beyond the smallness of this here and now and recognize that our true self is above all of that. It's beyond this atmospheric pressure, right? And so it becomes this thing of us just recognizing that we are here, this is the time, we are the people. So, so I'm always like at a certain point thinking to myself, like, man, am I going to be caught up in this, I guess I call it race consciousness, these ideas that people get caught, because the television, the media, the news, they'll tell us all kind of stuff, and we'll think that the world is going to hell in a handbag, but we're right where we're supposed to be, right? And all of this stuff is here so that we can figure out who we are in the midst of it. The Course tells us that there's nothing that we need to do, nothing we need to change, none of that stuff. But it also says that an untrained mind can accomplish nothing. We have to be alert in how we think and how we see, right? God, help me. It's a simple thing. You don't even need to have, somebody sanction and say it's okay for you to pray. It's easy to do. Right where you are, you can ask for that and absolutely get the answer that it is that you need to move beyond where you are. So, I always like to... I always like to give examples out of my life, and so it's funny. I was just recently ordained, and my minister is funny. He's funny. He's funny, right? He's a funny guy, and as he gets older, he's not as, direct in his thinking as he once was. It's a little fuzzy around the edges. Probably an understatement, but it's a little fuzzy around the edges. And it's so cute because I go in and sometimes I feel like, you see those commercials about the stuff that, the food that fights you at night or something like that, and it's hitting you. Sometimes I go in and I feel kind of like that. But remember, the Course in Miracles tells me I'm not a victim of the world I see. My dad was kind of like that. My dad was one of those people that was always like criticizing me. Sandy, you need to do this, and Sandy, you need to do that. Go get you a job, even if it's at McDonald's, or go do, because they don't see your vision. They don't see what the desires are for your life, right? And I've always said that if all I was going for was a paycheck, then I need to go a little higher, because there was something that was calling me, that was stretching me and saying that, my life was about more than that. People don't understand your dream. They don't understand your vision, and it's not for them to. It was given to you, right? And so if it's given to you, it means that it is your walk. You have to walk in that. It's not by agreement. Somebody else may think that I'm supposed to do something, that I need to do it. And, as parents, we're good at that. We want to see the highest and the best, right? But your vision was given to you. Nobody else is going to understand that. My dad wouldn't understand that. And my reverend certainly wouldn't understand that. Nobody's going to understand that. It's your walk. And so as you walk towards those things that it is for you to do, there'll be so much stuff that'll come up. And you can either look at it as if it is there to hurt you, or it's there to grow you.
Yes.
Right? And so for me, I kind of like take this thing, I have gotten really good at being able to laugh. Because a lot of times what we do is we forget to laugh. We're so busy caught up in what's, our own stuff, we forget to laugh. If you knew who you were, if you understood that you are one with God, if you understood just the magnitude of your being, you would be sitting there thinking like, "Whew, your arms are just too short to box with me." Because they really are. You would understand how great you are and what you were put here for. It would be such a different world if all of us could walk in our calling. If everybody would just walk in your calling, whatever it is that you're supposed to do. Not too late, right? It's never too late. And you know, it was interesting because a friend of mine just called me the other day, and he said, a friend of mine just called me the other day, and he said to me, he was like, you know, when I get my Social Security check, now he just applied for Social Security, he says, when I get my Social Security check, I'm going to take that and I'm going to do such and such with it, right? And he says, because you know Colonel Sanders started KFC with his Social Security check.
He did?
Yeah. It's not too late. Live what it is that's your truth. Live your calling, walk your calling, and know that there is nothing solid in this universe. That your speaking it makes things happen. It solidifies, it concretizes, it galvanizes things, and it draws them to you. You have the ability. As a matter of fact, it ought to be required. It is required of you to do more with it. So I just came by here to tell you that there are principles at work, laws at work, and those laws respond to you no matter what you think about yourself, no matter what you think you've been through, any of that stuff. They respond to you absolutely. So use that.